Poker movies. Why are they all so darn serious? Howdy. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, senior editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, and it seemed that screenwriter Zak Penn asked that question when he co-wrote and directed the movie The Grand. And Zak is with us today to discuss about his latest comedic look, which is done as an improvisational mockumentary about the World Series of Poker, or in this case, an event known as The Grand. As a poker fanatic, it was actually kind of nice to see a poker movie with a strong sense of humor that didn't take itself too seriously, because you rarely see that. It's a pretty serious, intense game, but Zak definitely had a lot of fun with it, and it's a fun little flick. This was done as an in-person interview on Zak's press day, and there's always a danger of these kind of things because you never know what's going to go on in the field. I kind of like the movie theater interviews that I do a little better, but the problem here is that somebody left a phone on nearby where my recording device was, and I'm pretty sure Zak turned his phone off, and I know I turned my phone off, so I think it might have been one of those sneaky, crazy publicists who, sadly, you could hear texting data kind of coming in and out of the audio of our podcast. It's not annoying enough that you can't listen, so I mean there's nothing I could do about it editorially or sound mix wise, but sadly it happened. It's always dangerous at these in-person interviews. I'm even hit in the end of the interview by a publicist because I go a few minutes over my time, but that's what I do. That's how I roll. If you dig this podcast, don't forget to look for Creative Screenwriting Magazine on newsstands and in Barnes & Noble and Borders bookshops in Canada, Western Europe, and of course right here in the United States. We pretty much pride ourselves on interviewing more screenwriters than just about any other outlet, so definitely check out what's in the latest issue of Creative Screenwriting Magazine by looking for it in stores or checking our website at www.creativescreenwriting.com. But now, without further ado, let's jump right into this kind of large hotel room for a one-on-one interview with co-writer-director Zak Penn to discuss his latest film, The Grand.
We've covered your breaking-in story before and stuff like that.
Sure.
But, I just got to ask this question because it was amusing. During the strike, you're married to a studio executive.
Yes.
What was your strike experience like with that in mind? What were those conversations like?
My conversations with my wife were pretty much the same anyone would have. The weird thing about Hollywood is there's this assumption that if you work inside those gates, that there's some sort of dividing line. But the truth is, as you probably know, a lot of the executives are as close to the writers as they are to the people they work for. So I don't think there were many executives in town who felt like, no, we don't want the writers to get residuals, or even the residuals that they think they deserve. So, Mish has benefited very much from the residuals that I've gotten, so she appreciates it. That said, it is uncomfortable. I mean, I tried a couple of times during the strike to say to people that I thought that the level of rhetoric needed to be calmed down, that even if the other side was not always going to behave nicely, we should hold ourselves to a higher standard. And there was times on the picket line where I was a little disappointed by some of the things I heard writers say, just wincing knowing these people are my friends. Some of them are in the writers, Toby Emmerich is a guy I've written scripts with. I mean, he's in the Writers Guild, and he's also an executive, and you hear people saying really negative stuff about people on the other side of the line, and, I think it was tough. It was not a pleasant, that aspect of the strike wasn't pleasant. There was a lot of really positive, uplifting things about the strike in terms of seeing writers come together and, seeing us actually do a good job negotiating, but that aspect of it was it was very tough for me to, I spoke up a couple of times and said, this is wrong. I don't want to be, if that's what we have to do to win this fight, then I don't want to win the fight.
In what capacity?
Well, I'm just saying, when it starts turning into, people. There was one specific instance where someone had put Peter Chernon's address on a sign, and I think that's completely. We're not coal miners in fighting to stop black lung. We are writers who are in the middle of a contract dispute, and we do ourselves a disservice by
Did anyone ever go to Chernon's house? Because I totally was ready to TP his house.
Yeah, well,
I had the Charmin.
No,
I was ready to go.
I'm sure nobody ever did, and it was an isolated incident. But the point I'm trying to make is that that kind of thinking, the kind of thinking that, when I was on the line the first day, there was someone who was like screaming, who was yelling at a studio executive in his Mercedes. And it was a friend of mine who's a producer, who's absolutely a friend of writers. And it's not like, he's not the enemy. It's not a war.
Well, I think the line was blurred because there was no exact side to the AMPTP. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were a bit faceless. Whereas there was definitely a voice and a face to the WGA.
Right, but and also that, here's the thing, it's not like the people who work at Time Warner are privy to the decisions made by their legal department. It's like, it is the equivalent of seeing someone from Iraq and throwing a rock at them because... God,
that's stupid.
It just doesn't make any sense. And that to me was a very frustrating part of it. But
it sounds like there was no real stress at home.
None at home, because I think we're all in agreement that we deserve a fair contract.
Very good. You've done a lot of big studio movies, and you kind of broke with that to write and direct Incident at Loch Ness. Obviously, I'm guessing it worked out successful. Would you say that, which is what led to this project?
Yeah. Oh, you mean that Loch Ness worked out successfully? Yeah.
Did it make its money back from investors?
It's just about making its money back now. We had a few hiccups in the road that were not entirely foreseen, but I think everyone will make their money back. But more importantly, I think that people who made the movie with me, the people who invested in it were pretty happy with the final product. I mean, there was a lot of goodwill towards it.
Sure.
And the movie itself has kind of gained a bit of a cult status, which was always my hope. So,
are you able to say what the budget was? Anything like that?
Of Loch Ness?
Yeah.
Was 1.3 or 1.4. Okay. I mean, it was very small.
Did you just kind of do the friends and family investing thing?
I did.
Okay.
I mean, I went, my friends and family include a bunch of industry people.
Sure.
But I put up a lot of money for Loch Ness. I mean, a lot of the initial money was put up by me, but for this one, I was determined to go different. I said, it's a little too much stress. I'm just going to have Endeavor help me put it together.
Well, so talk about that, actually. Talk about the beginnings of this movie, what gave you the idea to do it, and more importantly, how you found your funding.
The way the movie came about was I was at a poker game. I'm playing a weekly poker game. And one of the executives who I'm friends with, who plays in the game, there's a bunch of writers and actors and execs and agents. And Matt Bierman is one of the guys who plays in the game, and he said, I know he knew what I was looking to do, that I wanted to do another ensemble improv movie. And he said, you should do something about the World Series of Poker and he had a whole list of reasons. And, you kind of get used to, as a screenwriter, everyone's always pitching you what a good idea for a movie is. And you have like this inherent filter where you're like, okay, I'm not listening for a second. Or, you want to hear it, but you immediately are just like, oh, I hope this is actually going to be a good idea. And it was one of those times where I was like, wait, that is a good idea. I should do that. And I sat down with him pretty quickly, and we kind of...
And he's never written anything before, right?
I don't think he has. I mean, it certainly hasn't professionally. Right. And we wrote this, 15-page outline or 20-page outline, and I said, let's go try to put it together. And called my agent, and I ended up calling Chris Moore, who's an old friend of mine and was my first agent. And Chris and I and Ben Affleck had all known each other from years ago, from playing basketball together before he was a big star. And Ben actually had been hired to rewrite a script of mine at one point, Suspect Zero. He was
Really?
Yeah, he was going to star in it, and he was going to rewrite it and then star in it. And that's a whole other story. But
that was in our screening series years ago before we were podcasting.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I still have never seen the movie because it was rewritten a lot.
Oh, I know. We had the writer-director, I think, was our guest that night.
Well, I don't think he wrote it. Billy Ray wrote it. I know because Billy...
You're right. He was just the director.
Yeah, because Billy got in touch with me, actually, during the strike, which was very nice. I made a lot of new friends. And it was nice to kind of talk about that because that was a very painful project for me. But
right.
I was very...
All right, sorry. So back to
That's
this.
All right.
So back to this.
So, we all got together and, Ben wanted to do it and we set about to go get the funding and then it fell apart, for a variety of reasons. And we kept trying, and then I think I went off to write X-Men 3, and then other stuff happened. But in the end, Endeavor found these guys, Insomnia Media Group, which is like, it's this guy Brett Saxon has a company, and he wanted to get into investing in films. And we met with him, and we told him the idea, and we told him what we were going to do, and he said, okay, let's do it. And we then went out to cast it, and as long as we got a cast of a certain level, he would be willing to finance it. So it was kind of a one-stop shopping thing. And,
That's right.
and Graham Taylor at Endeavor really did a great job. I'm no longer at Endeavor, but he really deserves a lot of credit for putting it together.
So what was your budget that you started with?
You know, I'm not sure they like me publicizing the budget, but it was a couple of $1 million. I mean, it's very low budget, you know.
So, I mean, it was more than Loch Ness.
Yeah, it was more than Loch Ness, but less than X-Men 3.
I love poker.
Yeah.
And in honor of just, I got so ramped up, you know, watching your movie, preparing for this. I'm actually having friends over for poker tonight.
Nice. That's my goal, is to encourage people to gamble.
That's right. We're going to start we're going to either use my brand new Star Wars chipset that lights up, which I got at Comic-Con before Sharper Image started carrying it.
Right.
Or, of course, the Casino Royale replica chips.
Wow.
Made by the prop master that made them for the movie. So.
Well, I think you got to go with the latter there.
I know. But the Star Wars chips light up, so it's close. But here's my question.
They literally light up each chip?
No, you know what? It's the case.
Oh.
But the chips are lucite.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Takes batteries. Anyhow, here's my question. Why did you decide to go the mockumentary route again rather than like a traditional poker movie like Rounders, Cincinnati Kid, or even California Split?
Here's the thing. That a little secret is that the mockumentary format allows you to do sit-down interviews. Sit-down interviews are the most efficient, cheapest, you know, in terms of your hours. It's just an incredible way to get good material on camera quickly. When I look at what we would have if I cut out all of those interviews, we never would have been able to cut the movie together. It gives you incredible latitude, by the way, to if I want to do a bunch of jokes about how Werner's character, his history in Las Vegas, it's really difficult to do on a low budget unless I find a way to link all the footage together. So those sit-down interviews become incredibly important. Now, if it were up to me, all the scenes would be shot in a more naturalistic style. I have nothing new. Loch Ness was everything I ever wanted to say about documentaries and making fun of them. It's just that style really works. It's really efficient, and the jokes work in that style. And so it's less a conscious attempt to, I want to do another mockumentary than this form works for me. Like if
but
you were
it's also comedic. I mean, you could have easily
Absolutely.
done a serious poker movie. You know?
Well, that I had no interest in doing. I knew I wanted to do an ensemble comedy, an improv ensemble comedy, and I was just looking for the background for it. You know,
You brought him up a second ago. Werner Herzog's always been a hero of mine. I was lucky enough to interview him earlier this year for the podcast. He was in Loch Ness. Here he plays the German, a character who needs to eat something every day, kill something every day, so that
an animal.
What gave you the idea to have Werner as an actor, and how is he for you to direct?
Well, I met Werner. I worked with him on the script for Rescue Dawn, which was at the time Little Dieter Needs to Fly. But I kind of did a lot of uncredited work on that movie, and I became friends with him, and then we did Loch Ness together, and we had a really good time. I mean, I'm really flattered that he was willing to do it, and I kind of vowed that I would have him in every movie which is kind of a Werner, just to vow anything as something that Werner would do. Only Werner vows things. I generally half-heartedly promise. Werner will vow or swear an oath. And I think he's hilarious, and I think he's a really great actor, and he's absolutely awesome to watch on screen. Like, you can't not. I sometimes joke with my wife that she should put like a puppy in every movie because people like puppies and they can't. It's just like my little lame joke. But with Werner, I just feel like he's always going to be good. So why not have him? And the other thing is, he's a great person to have on set because it just gets people in the right. Anytime someone wants to complain, they look at Werner and think, maybe I should keep my mouth shut. Is this as bad as when he was in the Amazon for 4 years?
Yeah. That's funny.
So I just, I love working with him, and if I can find a part for him, I will. I have a TV show that I'm doing for ABC, and my goal is to get him to play a part on it,
You should. That'd be awesome. Now, you had a bunch of real poker players in the film. I mean, Phil Gordon was there as the host of the show. You had Negreanu, but you also had living legend Doyle Brunson. Mm-hmm. Was there ever consideration to give them a little more of a role? Because I kind of was fascinated to see those guys a little outside of the school regularly.
Here's the thing. I took what I could get. With Doyle and Phil Hellmuth, they pretty much showed up for that one day, and that's all really they had time for. Phil Lack and Antonio, on the other hand, were both there for a lot of it, so they're in more of the movie. And Phil and Antonio both have a lot of stuff on the DVD as well because they're really funny. But it was cool for me. I was telling everyone, I learned what a crappy poker player I was from being around those guys. So
that's funny.
I mean, Phil taught me a shitload about poker.
How long did it take you and Matt to write your script, and what did it look like before you went into production?
Well, there's no script. It's an improv movie, so it's just a treatment.
So it really never got you that treatment.
Just like Loch Ness, we work from what I call a scriptment, which is like a longer treatment. I mean, by the time production rolled around, maybe it was up to 35 pages, but it's still just an outline, and everything you see in the movie is improv.
Well, it's interesting because it's ensemble writing. You have so many characters. I mean, Ray Romano, all these other people show up, and it's kind of like each of them has their own beginning, middle, and end of a character arc. So did you just graph that out on the page of what it needed to be and let them go from there?
Well, I wish I could say I did, but the truth is that, with people like Ray, there's very little there when you read the scriptment, and Ray brought all this stuff to it. He came up with all this stuff. He wrote it out himself, and my job was to kind of mold some sort of coherent beginning, middle, and end for his story out of what he gave me, and he did a great job, so it wasn't that hard. But that's what's crazy about doing an improv movie. You have all these people going all these different directions, and you and your editor have to somehow collate it all and bring it all together in the end. And you're kind of counting on, it's like having 20 co-writers, all the cast. So
totally geeky. Did you write out some of the important hands, like what the hand needed to be? Because they play a big role, so you can't just improv a poker hand.
Well, first of all, you can, but I will tell you that, number one, yes, we did write out some of the hands at the beginning, but I don't know if you're aware of this. The final table is real. The final table, one of the things, when I wrote in the first treatment to the last treatment, it says, who wins? I don't know. I don't know who's going to win. We're going to leave it up to luck. We will play out the final table, and whichever character wins, we will shoot the ending that's appropriate. We shot 12 different endings for the movie. For each character, we shot the winning and the losing. And then for the final table, we set it up with 10 cameras, and we just played it. And if I won't say who wins it, but if anyone else had won it, it would have been a different ending.
And the characters getting to that table was scripted.
Everything getting up to the final table is absolutely scripted.
So the player Andy getting at the table.
Yeah, okay. Well, Andy Andrews, yeah. The hand that he beats... No, it's okay. Actually, he calls himself Andy.
Right.
The scene with him and Doyle and Phil is totally scripted because we needed it to be.
Right.
And the person who's integral in that is Andy Newman, who plays the dealer, is also the guy who created Celebrity Poker, and he helped me plan every hand.
Okay.
So
talk about the character of...
But I know enough about poker to know what I would never have it be, I've got quad aces and I've got quad kings. I knew generally that it had to be some sort of suck out on a flush or a straight.
Talk about the character of Andy Andrews for a second, because I thought it was really poignant, in which there is this thing in which the professionals are versus amateur internet players now. Because, I mean, if you have enough to stake your way into the game, you could be sitting at the table right next to Doyle. And I thought it was very funny for most of the movie, the way that Andy Andrews acts like this clueless internet player. There's a little more to him, not to give it away, but talk about just that character and where you got that idea, because I thought it worked.
Well, that's probably the element of the movie that's most about poker. I mean, I kept telling people, it's not a movie about poker. I don't want it to be a movie about poker. I want it to be a movie about a bunch of characters who happen to play poker. Andy is the one nod to my own interest and to Matt's own interest in the way the game has changed. And there is a theme in the script. It's something I talked about very early on, that this sense of false nostalgia, of this nostalgia for a Vegas that was better the old way, even though it was much more violent and unpleasant, and Deuce's all the stories about what he misses. And the same is true of poker, that you get these people who talk about how poker used to be. But the truth is that what it's becoming is in some ways much more interesting than what it used to be, And Andy kind of represents all that collision between the old and the... That's why it felt perfect for me to have Andy knock out Doyle, particularly because it's kind of like, here's this internet amateur coming on beating the best two players in the game. That is one of the things that's fascinating about poker, is the fact, could you imagine if someone could walk on and outplay LeBron James? It would be, it'd be weird. It'd be pretty thrilling for you personally. So that's something I tried to explore as best I could.
That was. I mean, he was really well cast too.
Thank you. Well, Richard's a friend of mine. Richard is one person that.
What's his full name?
Richard Kind.
Yeah.
Who's I'd sometimes describe him as that guy. He's one of those people that the second you see him, you're like, oh, that guy. He's always funny.
He was great. You also had Michael McKean.
Yeah.
Who is an expert at the mockumentary.
Yes.
What was it like directing him and working with him and kind of watching his improv style?
Michael. It's kind of, up there with Werner for me in terms of working with him. Spinal Tap, I think safely I would say Spinal Tap is one of the 10 best films ever made. I know that might be a bold statement, but I'm not just saying comedy. I just think that movie is so impeccable and so perfectly made, and every joke in it is perfect, and the characters are brilliant. And I think Michael is kind of he is kind of a genius actor. He's always good. And we were really lucky to get him. I mean, he had a window in his schedule and he could do it. And someone on set described him as poker Yoda. Improv Yoda,
yeah.
which I think is accurate. He is so effortless and could so much. I mean, he did all that stuff with Lavish, just came to him in one take. He'd get it down. So that was kind of a joy. I mean, I really am committed to working with him together. Again, I really, he's one of those guys that's like, God, why didn't I not?
Did he just kind of act like he's going to bring it to the table and he didn't want to see your script, man? Or how willing was he to kind of stay on course? Because you just think of him as like a force of nature, improving. And
no, he's first of all, Michael's really trained and very professional. So he, by the way, was pretty careful about jumping into it. Like, I had to send him the script. I had to talk to him. He really wanted to know, because he's done this, and I was very respectful. It would be kind of like, I'm going to go make a movie in the jungle. I better go talk to Werner before I do it. It's like, you're going to go do this. You want to talk to Christopher Guest or Michael or one of those guys. And he kind of entered it, he was a little cautious at first, but on set, he totally got it. I barely, and he's a very collaborative guy. He would come over and say, how was that? Is that what you were looking for or whatever? So, I think for the people for whom this is second nature, they're more collaborative with the director, ironically, because they're more comfortable.
Jack Farrow, obviously his last name is the true game of the Wild West, Faro, the game that predates poker.
Right.
It seems like if anyone is kind of a protagonist, he seems to be the protagonist of the movie, Woody Harrelson's character. Mm-hmm. His goal is to, win enough money so he could reclaim his family's casino. How important was that in your script, and then deciding how much of it you were going to keep in the movie? Because he starts when we meet him in rehab, long before we meet him in the poker game. He seems like the protagonist, but it's such a big ensemble that he kind of comes and goes.
Well, here's the thing. One of the first characters we came up with was Jack. Ben Affleck was actually pretty helpful in helping us with that. He had some suggestions about it. And that whole story was something that the whole idea of the failed casinos and living in rehab and the 75 wives, all of that stuff was in from the very beginning. And he is, it is a true ensemble, and it's hard to tell who the protagonist is. Sometimes I think Lainey is, sometimes I think, Andy is. I mean, Andy certainly was supposed to be the protagonist at one point as well. So I think it's a true ensemble, and there's a lot of stuff in the movie from, most of the Jack stuff stayed because it's like the main stuff, the casinos that burned down and, all that stuff has always been there. So
what was your shooting schedule?
It was about 20 days. I think we did it really fast. I mean, you have to.
Didn't you shoot in an actual casino?
Yeah, we did.
So how did you manage that on a low budget?
You're first of all, the Golden Nugget. Part of the reason why we're able to shoot such a low budget movie is that the Golden Nugget provided all these services for us. Gave us free rooms. We were able to put everyone up in nice rooms.
That's great.
And they have great suites, actually. I do not work for, nor am I affiliated with the Golden Nugget, but they do have awesome suites, and they put us all up in them. So, if they hadn't given us all that support, we wouldn't have been able to do it.
What was the improvisation that surprised you the most, that made you kind of want to rewrite a scene? Like, did you find yourself doing any rewriting when a character in one scene kind of change the storyline that might affect others?
Yeah.
Because that would seem like the tough thing to manage.
There's less of that than you might think. I mean, the actors are usually, that's exactly what you talk the actors through. When you have right before you do the scene, you say, look, here's what you need to get to. Jack, you have got to enter the tournament by the end of the scene. You have got to say this, that, and the other. The rest of it's up to you. That is the trick of the trade, honestly, is making sure that things don't go off the rails. The hardest part is when you're doing live poker that's real, how do you manage? There's no way to. I would sometimes sneak in there and say something to someone in between takes, but mostly we were running for 20 minutes at a time, and I just had to hope they got it,
One of the things you also poked fun at was the co-host of the poker show, having a lot of self-help books and videos. Are you kind of not the guy that likes to read poker books, or were you just poking fun at an industry that's kind of grown out of gurus?
To be fair, Michael Carnow deserves a lot of credit for that. He really came up with that character whole cloth. And, he played the cryptozoologist in Loch Ness as well. Michael's a writer as well as an actor. And he had all this crazy stuff that he'd come up with for Werby. I did read some of the books that are pretty hilarious. If you pick up some of the poker books, some of them are pretty ridiculous. But it's really more, Michael doesn't know anything about poker. He's more taking aim at a much bigger target. Right. And some of the Werby stuff that got cut, his interviews, he is the worst interviewer in creation. It's so funny. I'm excited for the DVD just for people to see that stuff.
What's next for you? What's your next project?
I'm working on a television show. Michael and I actually, during the movie, Michael pitched me an idea for a TV show called Section 8 that I thought was great. And we went and sold it to ABC, and the strike, we were on our way to make 6 episodes when the strike hit. So we got shut down, but we're hoping, I think we're going to get going again soon, and hopefully that'll be on ABC in the fall.
Are you able to give us the pitch as to what it is?
Yes, I can. It's basically, it's kind of like if Oliver Sacks ran the X-Men, is kind of a weird way to put it. Actually, I better put it a different way. It's basically a show about a group of people, all who have unusual abilities that kind of go past the norm, each of which are based on some sort of Oliver Sacks neurological problem. So it's a little bit like an Oliver Sacks book meets the X-Files.
I can't wait to see what you do next. You've been generous with your time. I just got hit by the publicist, so I guess we're done.
Yeah, when the publicist hits, the opera's over.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, take care.
And that's how the Q&A went down. Thanks again to co-writer-director Zak Penn for his time, and sorry again for the kind of annoying text data stream that you were hearing beep into our podcast here and there. There was nothing I could do about it. And yes, please don't send cards or flowers. The hit that I was given by the publicist was not that violent. I'm just fine. If you dug this episode of the podcast in general, consider tossing a virtual tip into our PayPal virtual tip jar by visiting www.creativescreenwritingmagazine.blogspot.com and look for the PayPal icon. Your tips are appreciated and definitely help out with equipment, hard drives, and all the other stuff we need to keep this podcast running. Of course, feel free to check out my blog, which I even managed to update on the rare occasion that I have time to do so by visiting www.jeffgoldsmith.blogspot.com. You can also always feel free to drop me a line by emailing me at yo.goldsmith@gmail.com, and I'll do my darndest to get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, don't forget to click that subscribe button in iTunes or your podcatching software, because that's how episodes are downloaded automatically every time you click refresh. And if you have a minute, feel free to leave us positive feedback in the iTunes Music Store or at podcastalley.com. I'm Jeff Goldsmith, Senior Editor for Creative Screenwriting Magazine, thanking you again for tuning in and telling you to stay out of trouble. Till next week.